They called her a leech. They called her worthless. For 3 years, Cassandra scrubbed the floors of the Sterling estate, endured the sneers of her mother-in-law, and wore rags to save her husband's crumbling reputation. But when Preston Sterling threw divorce papers in her face to marry a younger, wealthier woman, he made the biggest mistake of his life. He didn't know that the silent, submissive wife he was discarding was actually the hidden owner of Vance Vanguard Holdings, the very multi-billion-dollar conglomerate holding his family's massive debt. Today, the maid takes off her apron and the queen takes her throne. Watch what happens when the one you humiliated holds the keys to your destruction. The grandfather clock in the hallway of the Sterling estate chimed 6 times, the sound echoing off the cold marble floors like a death knell. Cassandra Vance, known simply as Cassie to the husband who barely looked at her anymore, adjusted the hem of her simple cotton dress. It was their 3rd anniversary. In the kitchen, the air was thick with the smell of roasted lamb and rosemary, Preston's favorite. Cassie had spent 6 hours preparing the meal, her hands red from chopping and scrubbing. She had no help. Beatrice Sterling, her mother-in-law, had fired the last housekeeper months ago, claiming budget cuts, though Cassie noticed Beatrice had walked in with a new limited edition Hermes Birkin bag the very next day. "He'll be home soon," Cassie whispered to herself, smoothing a stray lock of dark hair behind her ear. She walked into the dining room. The table was set with the Sterling family silver polished to a mirror shine by her own hands. She placed a small velvet box on Preston's plate. Inside was a vintage Patek Philippe watch, a 1950s model she had found at a pawn shop. In reality, she had her private broker secure it from a collector in Geneva for a staggering sum, carefully creating a fake receipt from a local pawn shop so Preston wouldn't question where she got the money. She just wanted him to smile at her again. The front door slammed open. Cassie's heart jumped. She rushed to the foyer, a welcoming smile plastered on her face. "Preston, happy Annie." The words died in her throat. Preston Sterling stood in the entryway, shaking the rain off his bespoke trench coat. But he wasn't alone. Hanging onto his arm, looking like a runway model in a shimmering red Versace dress, was Vanessa Caldwell. Vanessa was the daughter of a steel magnate, a woman Beatrice had always said was more suitable for Preston. "Preston." Cassie's voice trembled. Preston didn't even look at her. He shrugged off his coat, handing it to Cassie as if she were the help. "Hang this up, would you? It's soaking." Cassie stood frozen, the coat heavy in her arms. "Preston, it's our anniversary. Why is she here?" Beatrice Sterling descended the grand staircase, at that moment her heels clicking sharply against the stone. "Because you foolish girl, tonight is a celebration of the future, not a mourning of the past." Beatrice walked up to Vanessa, kissing her on both cheeks. "Vanessa, darling, you look stunning. Finally some class in this house." "Thank you, Beatrice," Vanessa simpered, casting a pitying glance at Cassie's plain cotton dress. "Oh, is this the wife? She looks quaint, like a little church mouse." Cassie dropped the coat. "Preston, what is going on?" Preston finally turned to her. His eyes, once warm, were now ice cold. He reached into his suit jacket and pulled out a thick manila envelope. He tossed it onto the entryway table. It slid across the polished wood and stopped right in front of Cassie. "Divorce papers," Preston said flatly. "I've signed them. You just need to sign and leave." The room spun. "Divorce, but we promised. Through sickness and health. For poorer or richer." "We are definitely at the poorer part because of you," Beatrice spat, stepping forward. "Look at you, Cassie. You're a dead weight. My son is the CEO of Sterling Industries. He needs a partner who brings capital, connections, and prestige. Vanessa brings a merger that will save this family from the brink of bankruptcy. What do you bring, Soup Laundry?" "I loved him," Cassie said, her voice barely a whisper. Her eyes locked on Preston. "I supported you when the stocks crashed last year. I sold my mother's jewelry to pay the property tax on this house so you wouldn't be embarrassed at the club." "Petty cash," Preston scoffed. "Vanessa's father is investing $50 million into Sterling Industries pending our engagement. 50 million, Cassie. Can you even count that high? Cassie felt a coldness settle in her chest, replacing the heartbreak with something harder, something sharper. So I am being traded, Cassie said, her posture straightening slightly, like a used car. Don't flatter yourself, Tiffany, Preston's younger sister, chimed in as she walked out of the living room holding a glass of champagne. Used cars have value. You're more like a lease that's expired. Honestly, it's embarrassing introducing you to my friends. Oh, that's my brother's wife. She wears generic brand shoes. It's tragic. Preston sighed, checking his Rolex, a gift from Cassie 2 years ago, though he told everyone he bought it himself. Just sign the papers, Cassie. I'm being generous. I'm letting you keep the old Toyota, and I'll give you $5,000 to get settled somewhere else. $5,000, Cassie repeated, for 3 years of my life. Take it or leave it, Preston snapped. Vanessa and I have a reservation at Le Bernardin at 8. You need to be gone by the time we get back. Cassie looked at the man she had hidden her empire for. She had wanted to be loved for herself, not her billions. She had played the role of the dutiful poor wife to see if the Sterlings had hearts beneath their designer clothes. The experiment was over. The results were negative. Cassie reached for the pen Preston held out. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply leaned over the table and signed her name in a fluid, elegant script. Cassandra Vance. She left the Sterling off. Good, Preston said, snatching the papers back. Now pack your things. The maid's— oh wait, you are the maid. We'll get your boxes. I don't need boxes, Cassie said calmly. She turned to the small table by the door, picked up her purse, a battered leather bag that Beatrice had once tried to throw in the trash, and walked to the door. Wait, Beatrice called out, her eyes narrowing. Open that bag. I want to make sure you aren't stealing any of the silverware. Cassie stopped. The humiliation was total. She turned around, unzipped her bag, and dumped the contents onto the floor. A tube of lip balm, a wallet, a phone, and a black titanium credit card with no numbers, just a chip and a signature. Beatrice squinted at the card. What is that? Some kind of library card? Cassie knelt, picked up the black card, and slipped it into her pocket. Something like that. Get out, Preston said, turning his back on her to pour Vanessa a drink. And don't come crawling back when you run out of gas. Cassie opened the heavy oak door. The rain was pouring down, thundering against the pavement. She stepped out into the storm, not looking back at the warmth and light of the Sterling mansion. As the door clicked shut behind her, the submissive quiet Cassie died. She walked down the long driveway, the rain soaking her cotton dress. Once she reached the iron gates, she stopped. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. She dialed a number she hadn't called in 3 years. Adrian, she said, her voice devoid of emotion. It's done. Come get me. A quarter of a mile down the road, away from the prying eyes of the Sterling estate, a convoy of 3 black SUVs idled in the darkness. They were Cadillac Escalades, armored and tinted, the kind used by heads of state. As Cassie approached, the rear door of the middle vehicle swung open. A man in a sharp gray suit stepped out, holding a large black umbrella. He moved with the precision of a soldier, but the grace of a diplomat. This was Adrian Thorne, the chief operating officer of Vance Vanguard Holdings and Cassie's most trusted confidant. He held the umbrella over her, shielding her from the rain. He looked at her wet hair, her cheap dress, and the utter lack of emotion in her eyes. Ms. Vance, Adrian said, his voice respectful and low. Welcome back. Thank you, Adrian, Cassie said. She slid into the plush leather interior of the SUV. The warmth hit her instantly. The smell of cheap cleaning supplies that had clung to her for years was replaced by the scent of fine leather and aged mahogany. Adrian climbed in beside her and tapped the partition. The convoy began to move, gliding silently toward New York City. I have the clothes you requested, Adrian said, gesturing to a garment bag hanging on the hook, and the dossier on Sterling Industries. Cassie didn't reach for the clothes yet. She reached for the tablet Adrian offered. She tapped the screen, bringing up the real-time financial data of her ex-husband's family company. They are celebrating tonight. Cassie said, her eyes scanning the numbers. Preston thinks Vanessa Caldwell's $50 million will save them. A Band-Aid on a bullet hole, Adrian noted. Sterling Industries is leveraged at 400%. They owe major debts to 3 different banks. And as of this morning, per your instructions executed by the shell corporation who owns those debts now. Cassie scrolled to the bottom of the document. The creditor listed wasn't a bank anymore. It was Vance Vanguard Holdings. We do, Cassie said, a ghost of a smile touching her lips. I own their house. I own their factory. I own the chair Preston is sitting in right now. Shall we foreclose immediately? Adrian asked, his finger hovering over his phone. No, Cassie said softly. That would be too quick. They humiliated me for 3 years, Adrian. They treated me like a servant in my own home. Beatrice accused me of stealing silverware. Tiffany mocked my clothes while wearing a dress I could buy the factory of. Preston. She paused, looking out the window at the city lights blurring by. Preston broke his vows for money. I want them to feel hope first. I want them to climb high thinking they've won so the fall breaks every bone in their bodies. Understood, Adrian said. The Global Tech Summit is in 2 days. The Sterlings are desperate to attend. They want to pitch their new revolutionary AI software to the biggest investor in the field. And who is the biggest investor? Cassie asked, though she knew the answer. You are Ms. Vance, or rather the CEO of Vance Vanguard. They've never seen your face. You've been the shadow CEO for 5 years operating through proxies. They have an appointment with your proxy, Mr. Sterling believes. Cancel the proxy, Cassie commanded. Tell them the CEO herself will be attending the summit. Tell them, I'm looking for a partner. Adrian smirked. Brilliant. They will walk right into the lion's den. Cassie reached for the garment bag. She pulled out a sleek, tailored white blazer and trousers from Givenchy and a pair of Jimmy Choo heels that cost more than the car Preston had generously let her keep. Pull over at the penthouse, Cassie said. I need to shower off the stench of that house. And Adrian. Yes, ma'am. Put a freeze on the Caldwell merger. Use our regulatory influence. I don't want Vanessa's money saving them before I'm done. Consider it done? And regarding your name, do we announce the return of Cassandra Vance? No, Cassie said, her eyes hardening. Cassie, the housewife, is dead. Introduce me only as Ms. Vance. Let them wonder. Let them fear. The convoy sped up, crossing the bridge into Manhattan. The skyline glittered ahead, a kingdom waiting for its queen. Back in the suburbs, Preston Sterling was likely toasting champagne with Vanessa, laughing about the burden he had just unloaded. He had no idea that the burden was about to become the anvil that would sink him. The morning sun hit the Sterling estate not with the warmth of a new beginning, but with the harsh glare of reality. Inside the master bedroom, Preston Sterling woke up with a pounding headache. The champagne from the night before vintage Dom Perignon meant to celebrate his freedom had left a bitter taste in his mouth. He rolled over, expecting to smell the aroma of freshly brewed Colombian coffee and warm croissants. It was a routine he had taken for granted for 3 years. Cassie always woke up at 5:00 a.m. to ensure his breakfast was ready by 7:00 a.m. sharp. But the air was stale. The house was silent. Cassie, he mumbled instinctively before the memory of the previous night came rushing back. The rain, the divorce papers, the way she had walked out into the storm. Right, Preston muttered, sitting up and rubbing his temples. She's gone. Good riddance. He threw on a silk robe and walked downstairs. The kitchen was cold, the sink was empty, but the counters were bare. No coffee, no breakfast. Beatrice Sterling was sitting at the dining table, tapping furiously on her phone. She was still wearing her jewelry from the night before, looking haggard. Where is the coffee? Beatrice snapped without looking up. I've been ringing the bell for 20 minutes. Did you hire the new maid yet? Mother, it's been 12 hours, Preston said, opening the refrigerator. It was stocked with ingredients, but nothing was prepared. He grabbed a bottle of water. I'll call the agency today. We can survive one morning without a 5-course breakfast. It's not just breakfast, Preston, Beatrice hissed, finally putting her phone down. The house is freezing. The thermostat was programmed by her. I don't know how to work the blasted thing. And look at this. She gestured to the floor. A tiny scuff mark on the marble. The foyer is already dusty. That girl might have been a bore, but she knew how to clean. Stop talking about her, Preston said, irritated. She's history. Vanessa is the future. Speaking of which, have you seen the stock reports? The announcement of our split should have stabilized the market's confidence, knowing I'm free to marry into the Caldwell family. Preston pulled up the financial news on his tablet. His face went pale. Sterling Industries stock plummets. 12% amidst rumors of hostile debt takeover. What? Preston gasped. That's impossible. The Caldwell merger news was supposed to leak this morning. Just then his phone rang. It was terrified personal assistant Greg. Mr. Sterling, you need to get to the office. Now, Greg squeaked. Calm down, Greg. What is it? It's the bank, sir. First National. They called to say they no longer hold our primary loan. They sold the debt package early this morning. Preston laughed nervously. So, what banks sell debt all the time? Who bought it? A holding company called Vanguard, Greg said. And sir, they've already issued a notice of immediate audit. They are freezing the company credit cards until the audit is complete. Your corporate jet was just grounded in Teterboro. Preston dropped the water bottle. It shattered on the floor, splashing water over his expensive slippers. Vanguard. The international conglomerate. Why would they want our debt? I don't know, sir, but they sent a representative. He's waiting in your office. He says he won't leave until he speaks to the CEO. Preston looked at Beatrice, fear creeping into his eyes for the first time. I have to go. Across the city in the penthouse suite of the Vance Tower, a building that pierced the clouds like a needle of glass and steel, Cassandra Vance stood before a floor-to-ceiling mirror. The transformation was striking. The mousy, hunched woman in the cotton dress was gone. In her place stood a titan. Her dark hair, previously kept in a messy bun to avoid Beatrice's criticism, was now blown out in sleek, cascading waves that framed a face of sharp intelligence. Her skin, finely treated with the luxury products she owned the patents for, glowed. She wore a blood-red power suit from Alexander McQueen, tailored to within a millimeter of her life. The sharp shoulders gave her an imposing silhouette. On her wrist, she didn't wear the pawnshop watch she gave Preston. She wore a Jaeger-LeCoultre worth more than the Sterling estate. Adrian entered the room holding a tablet. He paused, admiring the change. The butterfly has left the cocoon, Adrian said with a smile. You look formidable, Ms. Vance. I feel formidable, Adrian? Cassie replied, turning to face him. Her voice had dropped an octave, losing the high-pitched, pleasing tone she used to use for Preston. What is the status of the Sterling's panic mode? Adrian reported. Preston is rushing to his office to meet with our representative, Mr. Kincaid. Kincaid has instructions to be as vague and terrifying as possible. We've frozen their operational accounts. They can't even buy printer paper right now without our approval. And the Caldwell merger. That's the cherry on top, Adrian said, tapping his tablet. I spoke to the Federal Trade Commission this morning. We pulled a few strings, highlighted some irregularities in Caldwell Steel's environmental reports. The merger is under review. It's paused indefinitely. Cassie walked over to the window, looking down at the ants crawling on the streets of Manhattan. Somewhere down there, Preston was sweating. Vanessa Caldwell won't stick around if Preston can't access his money, Cassie mused. She's a shark. Sharks don't swim in empty pools. What is your move for the summit tomorrow? Adrian asked. You are the keynote speaker. The theme is Hidden Giants. Very fitting. I want front row seats reserved for Preston, Beatrice, and Vanessa, Cassie said coldly. Send them VIP invitations. Make them think they are special. Make them think that Vanguard wants to partner with them. I want them sitting right there looking up at the stage when I walk out. That is cruel, Adrian noted. Cruelty is divorcing your wife on your anniversary and giving her $5,000 to disappear, Cassie corrected. This This is just business. She grabbed her briefcase. Let's go, Adrian. I have a company to run, and I believe I need to stop by the jewelry store. I need a new necklace, something that catches the light and blinds the enemy. The Global Tech Summit was the event of the year. Held at the Javits Center, it was a convergence of billionaires, innovators, and opportunists. The air buzzed with the sound of deals being made and egos being stroked. A black limousine pulled up to the VIP entrance. Preston Sterling stepped out, adjusting his tie. He looked composed, but underneath his suit he was sweating profusely. Beatrice followed, wearing a fur coat despite the mild weather, trying to look like the matriarch of a thriving empire. Vanessa came last, looking annoyed. She was frantically texting on her phone. "Put the phone away, Vanessa," Preston hissed as they walked toward the red carpet. "We need to look united." "United?" Vanessa scoffed, slipping her phone into her clutch. "My father is furious, Preston. The merger is on hold, your accounts are frozen, and now you're dragging me to a conference to beg for money." "We aren't begging," Beatrice interjected, lifting her chin. "We received VIP invitations from Vanguard itself. The owners of the debt. They clearly want to discuss a partnership. Why else would they give us front row seats?" "Exactly," Preston said, smoothing his hair. "This is a negotiation tactic. They bought the debt to get our attention. They want our AI technology. Once I meet the CEO of Vanguard, I'll charm him. I'll make him realize that Sterling Industries is a gold mine." They reached the check-in desk. A young woman with a headset scanned their digital invites. Her eyes widened. "Ah, Mr. Sterling, Mrs. Sterling, and Ms. Caldwell," she said, her voice dropping to a hush. "You are the guests of the keynote speaker. Please follow me. We have a private escort for you." Beatrice smirked at Vanessa. "See, guests of the speaker, we are royalty here." They were led through the crowded hall, bypassing the long lines of regular attendees. Preston felt his confidence returning. Yes, he thought. I am Preston Sterling. I belong here. Cassie was holding me back with her mediocrity. This is where I belong. They were ushered into the main auditorium, a massive cavern filled with 3,000 people. The escort led them to the very front row center stage. The seats were plush velvet, labeled with gold placards. "Please sit," the usher said. "The program will begin in 5 minutes." Preston sat down, crossing his legs. He looked around. To his left sat the CEO of Google. To his right, the founder of SpaceX. He was in the inner circle. "Who is the CEO of Vanguard anyway?" Vanessa asked, looking at the empty stage. "Nobody knows. They say he's a recluse. Or maybe it's a board of directors." "Whoever he is, he's smart," Preston said. "He recognizes talent." Suddenly the lights in the auditorium dimmed. A hush fell over the crowd. A deep voice boomed over the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2025 Global Tech Summit. Please welcome the owner and CEO of our primary sponsor, Vanguard Holdings, the woman who built a shadow empire, Ms. Cassandra Vance." Preston frowned. Woman Cassandra. The name triggered a faint, annoying memory like a gnat buzzing in his ear, but he dismissed it. Cassandra is a common name, he told himself. Spotlights swept across the stage, converging on the center. The heavy velvet curtains parted. Music swelled, a deep orchestral swell of cellos and violins that sounded ominous and powerful. From the shadows, a figure emerged. She walked with a stride that commanded the earth to hold her weight. Her red suit blazed under the stage lights like fresh blood. Her dark hair flowed over her shoulders like a river of silk. She stopped at the podium, gripping the edges with manicured hands. She looked out at the audience, her gaze sweeping over the thousands of faces. Then her eyes locked on the front row. She smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of a predator spotting a wounded gazelle. Preston Sterling squinted. The lights were bright, and she was standing above him. He knew that face. He knew the curve of that jaw. He knew those eyes. But the context was so wrong his brain refused to process it. It can't be, he thought. Cassie is cleaning floors. Cassie is wearing rags. Cassie is... The woman leaned into the microphone. "Good evening," she said. Her voice was smooth, velvety, and projected with a power Preston had never heard before. 3 years ago, I started a journey of silence. I learned that sometimes to build an empire, you have to work in the shadows. You have to let people underestimate you. You have to let them think you are nothing. Beatrice grabbed Preston's arm. Her fingernails dug into his flesh. "Preston," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Preston, look at her." "I am looking," Preston whispered back, his mouth dry. "While I was building Vance Vanguard," the woman on stage continued, "I lived a double life. In one life, I acquired companies, managed hedge funds, and bought national debts. In the other life..." She paused, her eyes drilling into Preston's. "In the other life, I learned the value of loyalty and the price of betrayal." She tapped the podium. A massive screen behind her lit up. It showed the corporate structure of Vance Vanguard. Underneath the main logo were dozens of subsidiaries, and right in the center, highlighted in red, was a new acquisition, Sterling Industries. "Today," Cassie said, her voice ringing like a bell, "I am here to announce that Vance Vanguard has acquired full control of the debt of Sterling Industries, and as the majority creditor, I will be making some structural changes." The crowd applauded politely, thinking it was just a business announcement. But in the front row, the world ended. Preston's jaw hit his chest. Vanessa gasped, dropping her clutch. Beatrice looked like she was having a stroke. "It's her!" Vanessa shrieked, forgetting to whisper. "It's the maid! It's your wife!" Heads turned. People stared. Cassie ignored the outburst. She continued her speech, talking about innovation and the future, but every few sentences she would glance down at Preston, enjoying the look of absolute terror on his face. When the speech ended, the applause was thunderous. Cassie bowed gracefully and walked off stage. "We have to go backstage," Preston stammered, standing up on shaky legs. "There must be a mistake. Or if it is her, she's my wife. We're still married. The papers aren't filed yet." A sudden spark of hope lit up his eyes. "That's right. The divorce isn't final. If she's worth billions, half of that is mine." "You idiot!" Vanessa yelled. "You signed a prenup. You made her sign a prenup to protect your measly millions." "No," Preston said, eyes widening. "The prenup said, what we bring in, we leave with. She brought nothing. Or so I thought. This company, she built it during the marriage." "Move," Beatrice commanded, shoving people aside. "We need to talk to her. She's family. She loves you, Preston. She was obsessed with you. You can fix this. Just smile at her. Remind her of the good times." They rushed toward the VIP backstage entrance. A massive security guard blocked the way. He was built like a tank. "Let us through," Preston demanded, trying to summon his CEO voice but sounding like a frightened child. "I am her husband." The guard looked at a list on his clipboard. "I have a Mr. Sterling on the list." "See?" Preston turned to Vanessa. "She wants to see me. However," the guard continued, "Ms. Vance has given strict instructions. She will only see Mr. Sterling. The other two..." He looked at Beatrice and Vanessa with disdain. "Can wait by the dumpster." "How dare you!" Beatrice shrieked. "Go, Preston!" Vanessa pushed him. "Go in there and get our money back. Fix this." Preston straightened his tie, took a deep breath, and walked past the guard. He entered the green room. It was luxurious, filled with white roses and champagne. Cassie was sitting on a velvet sofa sipping a glass of water. Adrian stood behind her. She didn't stand up when Preston entered. She didn't smile. She just looked at him over the rim of her glass. "Hello, Preston," she said. "Cassie." Preston breathed out, walking toward her with his arms open. Honey, my God, you look incredible. Why didn't you tell me why the games? He tried to hug her. Step back! Adrian warned, his voice like a whip crack. Preston froze. He looked at Cassie. Babe, come on. It's me, your husband. Look, I know yesterday was messy. I was stressed. The company was in trouble. I wasn't thinking straight. But seeing you up there, I realized something. I realized how much I admire you. You admire my bank account, Cassie said flatly. She set the water down. Sit down, Preston. Not on the sofa, the chair. She pointed to a small hard wooden chair in the corner. Preston sat his knees together. Cassie, please. We can work this out. We are a power couple now. Think about it. Sterling and Vance. We could rule the world. There is no Sterling and Vance, Cassie said. There is only Vance, and Sterling is just a subsidiary I own. But the divorce, Preston started, is being processed as we speak, Cassie said. However, since I now own your debt, I have a proposal. I can foreclose on your company, seize your family home, and leave you, your mother, and your sister on the street by tomorrow afternoon. Preston trembled. Please, don't. That house. It's been in the family for 4 generations. Or, Cassie continued, leaning forward, I can offer you a job. Preston blinked. A job? You mean I stay on as CEO? Cassie laughed. It was a cold, dry sound. No, Preston. You aren't qualified to be CEO. You ran the company into the ground. I have a new CEO in mind. Adrian will take over operations. Then, what job? Cassie reached into her bag and pulled out a familiar object. It was a white apron, the same one she used to wear while scrubbing his floors. She tossed it at him. It landed on his lap. I need a cleaner for the executive washrooms at Vance Tower, Cassie said. The pay is minimum wage, but it comes with benefits. If you take the job and if you do it well, I won't foreclose on your mother's house. I'll let her keep living there, as long as you are scrubbing my toilets. Preston stared at the apron. The humiliation burned his face like acid. You can't be serious, he whispered. Dead serious, Cassie said, checking her watch. You have 10 seconds to decide. The foreclosure lawyers are on speed dial. 1, 2... I'll do it, Preston choked out. Cassie smiled. Good. You start Monday, 6:00 a.m. Don't be late. I hate tardiness. She stood up and walked toward the door. Oh, and Preston, tell Vanessa she's welcome to visit you at work, but she'll need a visitor's pass for the janitorial closet. Cassie walked out, leaving Preston Sterling sitting in the hard chair clutching the white apron as the sound of her heels faded down the hallway. The ride back to the Sterling estate was silent, a suffocating vacuum where the air conditioning hummed louder than their thoughts. When the limousine finally pulled up to the curb, the facade of the Sterling family shattered completely. Vanessa Caldwell didn't wait for the driver to open the door. She kicked it open, her heels scraping against the asphalt. This is a joke, she spat, turning to look at Preston, who was still slumped in the seat, pale and trembling. You took the job. You actually agreed to be a janitor. Preston looked up, his eyes hollow. Vanessa, you don't understand. She owns the debt. If I don't do this, she takes the house. Mother would be homeless. We would be homeless. We... Vanessa laughed, a harsh, jagged sound. There is no we, Preston. I am a Caldwell. My father is a steel magnate. Do you think I can be seen with a man who scrubs urinals for a living? My social standing would evaporate overnight. She reached into the car, grabbed her purse, and straightened up. Don't call me. Don't text me. And if you see me on the street, cross to the other side. Vanessa, wait. Preston scrambled out of the car, reaching for her arm. She pulled back as if he were contagious. Don't touch me. You smell like failure. She turned and hailed a passing taxi, an irony not lost on Preston as she refused to ride in the tainted limo and sped away into the night. Beatrice Sterling emerged from the car slowly. She looked older than she had that morning. The Botox in her forehead couldn't hide the lines of terror forming around her eyes. "She's gone," Beatrice whispered. "The $50 million is gone." "We still have the house, Mother," Preston said, trying to sound reassuring but failing miserably. "Cassie promised. As long as I work." Beatrice looked at her son with a mixture of pity and disgust. "You are a Sterling, Preston. Your great-grandfather built this town's first railroad, and you are going to be a cleaning lady for your ex-wife." She shook her head, walking toward the front door. "I'm going to my room. Do not disturb me. I need to mourn the death of our dignity." Monday morning arrived with the subtlety of a sledgehammer. At 5:00 a.m., Preston's alarm went off. For a split second, he reached for his phone to check the stock market, his old routine. Then he saw the white apron and the blue polyester jumpsuit hanging on the back of his door. He vomited in the bathroom sink before he could even brush his teeth. The commute to the city was brutal. He couldn't afford gas for his car on a minimum wage salary, and Cassie had frozen the corporate cards. He had to take the train. He stood for an hour, sandwiched between construction workers and students clutching a plastic bag with his lunch, a sandwich he had made himself badly. He arrived at Vance Tower at 5:45 a.m. The building was a monolith of glass reflecting the sunrise. It looked like a sword stabbed into the heart of Manhattan. He entered through the service entrance around the back as instructed. "Name," the security guard barked. It was the same guard from the tech summit. He smirked when he saw Preston. "Preston Sterling," he mumbled. "Speak up, I can't hear you." "Preston Sterling," he shouted, his face burning. "Right, here's your badge." The guard slid a plastic ID across the counter. The photo was unflattering, taken from a security camera still, and under his name in bold red letters, it read Sanitation Trainee. Preston pinned it to his jumpsuit. He felt the heavy synthetic fabric scratching his neck. He who used to wear only Egyptian cotton and Italian silk. He reported to the basement. The head of custodial services was a man named Miller. Miller was a large man with forearms like tree trunks and a no-nonsense attitude. He looked Preston up and down. "You're the special project from upstairs?" Miller grunted. "Ms. Vance sent down a specific schedule for you." He handed Preston a laminated checklist. 1. Executive washrooms, 30th, 50th floor. 2. Lobby polishing, 7:00 a.m. 9:00 a.m. 3. Trash removal boardroom. Get to it, Sterling, and don't think because you used to be a big shot you can slack off. Ms. Vance has cameras everywhere. Preston spent the first 2 hours on his knees. He scrubbed grout with a toothbrush. He wiped down mirrors until his arms ached. The smell of industrial bleach made his eyes water. At 8:30 a.m. he was assigned to the main lobby. He was pushing a heavy buffer machine across the marble floors. The lobby was filling up with employees arriving for work. Men in sharp suits, women in tailored dresses. They walked past him, talking on their phones, drinking lattes. None of them looked at him. To them, he was furniture. He was invisible. "Excuse me," a man said, stepping around Preston's buffer. "You missed a spot there." Preston looked up. It was a former intern he had fired from Sterling Industries 2 years ago for spilling coffee. The intern was now wearing a tailored suit, clearly working for Vance Vanguard. The intern frowned, squinting. "Mr. Sterling." Preston panicked. He pulled his cap down low. "No, just the cleaner." He turned away, his heart hammering against his ribs. Then the atmosphere in the lobby changed. The chatter stopped. The air grew heavy with anticipation. The automatic door slid open. Cassandra Vance walked in. She was flanked by Adrian and a team of lawyers. She wore a charcoal gray trench coat over a white dress, sunglasses shielding her eyes. She moved with a kinetic energy that parted the sea of employees. Preston gripped the handle of the buffer machine. "Don't look at me," he prayed. Please, God, don't look at me. Cassie walked straight toward the elevators. But as she passed the center of the lobby, she stopped. She took off her sunglasses. She turned her head slowly and looked directly at Preston. The lobby was silent. Everyone watched. The contrast was stark. The Empress of Industry and the man in the blue jumpsuit. Cassie walked over to him. Her heels clicked sharply on the floor he had just polished. She stopped inches from him. She could smell the sweat and bleach on him. "You missed a spot," she said softly, pointing to a tiny scuff mark near her shoe. Preston felt tears pricking his eyes. "I'll get it, Ms. Vance." "See that you do," she said. "We have a board meeting at 10. I want the windows in the conference room spotless. I want to be able to see the city I own clearly." She turned and walked away. "Oh, and Preston?" she called out over her shoulder. He froze. "Your mother called the front desk 5 times this morning. Tell her that if she calls the executive line again, I'm deducting the cost of the wasted time from your paycheck." The elevator doors closed, taking her up to the sky. Preston was left standing in the lobby surrounded by hundreds of whispering employees. He dropped to his knees and began to scrub the scuff mark, his tears mixing with the floor wax. 3 weeks passed. Preston's hands were calloused. His back was in a constant state of spasm. He had lost 10 pounds, his face gaunt and shadowed with stubble. He was too tired to shave. The humiliation had become a dull ache, a constant companion. But desperation breeds dangerous thoughts. On a rainy Tuesday night, Preston was taking out the trash bags to the loading dock. The alley was dark, illuminated only by the flickering yellow light of a street lamp. "You look terrible, Preston." The voice came from the shadows. Preston jumped, dropping a bag of shredded documents. Vanessa Caldwell stepped out from behind a dumpster. She was wearing a trench coat, her collar turned up. She looked anxious, smoking a thin cigarette. "Vanessa," Preston gasped. "What are you doing here? You said to never contact you." "Things have changed," Vanessa said, taking a nervous drag. "My father, he's in trouble. That little stunt your ex-wife pulled with the FTC, it triggered a full-scale investigation into Caldwell Steel. They're freezing our assets, Preston, just like yours." "I'm sorry," Preston said, though a small part of him felt a grim satisfaction that he wasn't the only one suffering. "Sorry doesn't fix it," Vanessa hissed. She threw the cigarette down and crushed it with her heel. "But I know what will. Money and leverage." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "I've been doing research on Vanguard. Their new AI project, the one they are unveiling next month, it's revolutionary. It's worth billions. And the source code is stored on a dedicated server in the building." Preston shook his head. No way. I'm just a janitor, Vanessa. I clean toilets. I don't hack servers." "You have the keys, you idiot," Vanessa whispered aggressively. "I saw your belt. You have the master key for the maintenance closets, and the server room has a maintenance hatch for the cooling system. I have a buyer in Shanghai. They are willing to pay $20 million for that code, cash." $20 million, Preston repeated. The number danced in his head. $10 million for him. He could leave the country. He could buy a new identity. He could escape Cassie's boot. "I have a drive," Vanessa said, pulling a sleek silver USB device from her pocket. "It has a program on it. You just need to plug it into the main server. It will copy the files automatically in 2 minutes. Then you walk out, give it to me, and we disappear." "It's too dangerous," Preston stammered. "There are cameras." "The maintenance hatch is a blind spot," Vanessa insisted. "I've seen the blueprints. Preston, look at you. You're wearing a polyester jumpsuit. You smell like ammonia. Do you want to do this for the rest of your life? Do you want to die scrubbing her floors?" Preston looked down at his cracked hands. He thought of Beatrice crying in her room. He thought of the way the employees looked through him. "Give me the drive," Preston said. The plan was set for the following night, Wednesday, 11:00 p.m. The building would be mostly empty. Preston clocked in for the night shift. His heart was thumping so hard he thought it would crack his ribs. He pushed his cleaning cart toward the elevators, the silver drive burning a hole in his pocket. He reached the 40th floor, the server room. He checked the hallway. Empty. He wheeled his cart to the maintenance door. He fumbled with his massive ring of keys until he found the one labeled HVAC Elec. The lock clicked. He slipped inside. The room was freezing, filled with the hum of massive cooling fans. Rows of black server towers blinked with blue and green lights. It looked like the brain of a sleeping giant. Preston located the main terminal. His hands were shaking so badly he dropped the drive twice. Finally, he found the port. He plugged it in. A small red light on the drive began to blink. Copying. 10%. 20%. Come on, Preston whispered, sweat dripping down his nose. 50%. Suddenly the hum of the fans stopped. The room went dead silent. Then the lights shifted. The blue ambient lighting turned to a harsh flashing red. Access denied. The words scrolled across the server screen. Lockdown initiated. No. Preston gasped. He tried to yank the drive out, but the terminal locked it in place. The door to the server room hissed open. Preston spun around, backing up against the servers. Cassie stood in the doorway. She wasn't wearing business attire. She was wearing jeans and a black turtleneck, looking like a spy from a movie. Adrian stood beside her, arms crossed. 2 security guards blocked the exit. "I expected more from you, Preston," Cassie said, her voice echoing in the cold room. "Actually, that's a lie. I expected exactly this." "It's not what it looks like," Preston cried, holding up his hands. "I was cleaning, I found this drive." "Stop," Cassie said, walking into the room. She tapped the keyboard and the screen changed to show a live video feed of the alleyway. On the screen, Vanessa Caldwell was pacing back and forth, checking her watch. "We've been watching Vanessa for weeks," Adrian said. "We knew she bought the decryption software on the black market. We knew she contacted you. We let you enter the room." "Why?" Preston slumped against the server rack. "Why let me get this far?" "To see if you had changed." Cassie said, a flash of genuine sadness in her eyes. "Part of me, a very small foolish part of me, hoped you would throw that drive away. I hoped that maybe, just maybe, losing everything had taught you integrity. I gave you a job. I let you keep your home. I gave you a second chance." She walked closer, her eyes hardening into diamonds. "But you are a parasite, Preston. You and Vanessa. You don't build. You steal. You don't work. You take." "Please, Cassie," Preston begged, sliding down to his knees. "She made me do it. She said she'd pay me. I just wanted to leave. I just wanted to escape." "And you shall," Cassie said. She nodded to Adrian. Adrian pulled out his phone. "Police?" "Yes, we have the intruder, and we have the location of his accomplice in the alley. Pick them up." "Police!" Preston shrieked. "Cassie, no. This is corporate espionage. That's 20 years in prison. You should have thought of that before you tried to steal my life's work," Cassie said coldly. She turned to leave but paused at the door. "You know what the funniest part is, Preston?" He looked up, tears streaming down his face. "That drive you plugged in, it didn't copy my AI code. It uploaded a virus I wrote. As soon as you plugged it in, it traced back to the source of the software Vanessa bought. It just exposed her father's illegal offshore accounts to the IRS and the FBI. By tomorrow morning, Caldwell Steel will be raided. You didn't just ruin yourself, Preston. You took down the whole Caldwell empire." Cassie smiled. "You finally did something useful for me. Thank you." She walked out. "Wait, Cassie! Don't leave me here!" Preston screamed. The security guard stepped forward, handcuffs gleaming in the red emergency lights. 6 months after the red server room scandal, The atmosphere inside the federal district court was suffocating. The gallery was packed with reporters, former employees, and victims of the fraud exposed by Cassie's virus. In the front row, Cassandra Vance sat in a simple navy suit, radiating a calm that terrified the defense team. "All rise." Judge Eleanor Sterling took the bench. She stared down at the two defendants. Preston Sterling, once the arrogant prince of industry, now stood in a bright orange federal jumpsuit shackled at the waist. He looked 20 years older, his posture broken. Beside him, Vanessa Caldwell stood with a defiant sneer, though her hands trembled. "You have been found guilty of corporate espionage, grand larceny, and conspiracy," the judge announced, her voice echoing off the mahogany walls. "Mr. Sterling, you were given a lifeline by the very woman you discarded. Instead of climbing up, you tried to pull her down. That is not desperation. That is malice." She turned her gaze to Vanessa. "And you, Ms. Caldwell, dragged your family empire into the mud with you. I sentence you to 15 years in federal prison." Vanessa shrieked, her knees buckling as marshals grabbed her arms. "It was a trap! She set us up!" she screamed, pointing at Cassie. The judge banged her gavel, silencing the outburst. "Preston Sterling," the judge continued. Preston flinched. "For your betrayal of trust and active participation in the theft, I sentence you to 8 years. A gasp rippled through the courtroom. Furthermore, the judge added, delivering the final blow, to pay restitution for the damages, the Sterling family estate will be seized and liquidated immediately. Preston's head snapped up. "No, not the house. My mother lives there." "Your mother should have taught you better morals," the judge said coldly. "Court is adjourned." As the gavel fell, the marshals hauled Preston away. He twisted in their grip, locking eyes with Cassie. "Cassie, help me. Please, I'm sorry." Cassie watched him vanish through the side door, his chains rattling. She felt no joy, only a quiet, clean emptiness. The burden was finally gone. Outside, the rain fell in sheets. Cassie descended the courthouse steps, Adrian holding an umbrella over her. Suddenly, a figure burst through the line of reporters. It was Beatrice Sterling. She looked pathetic, her furs replaced by a thin wool jacket, her face streaked with mascara. "Cassandra!" Beatrice wept, grabbing Cassie's sleeve. "You have to help me. They're taking the house tomorrow. I have nowhere to go. We were family." Cassie gently removed Beatrice's hand. "We were never family, Beatrice. I was staff to you." "But I'll be homeless," Beatrice wailed. "Where will I sleep?" Cassie reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. "I have news regarding the estate. I bought it from the bank this morning." Beatrice's eyes lit up with desperate hope. "You did? Oh, thank God, so I can stay." "No," Cassie said, her voice soft but firm. "I'm donating the property to the city. Next month it will reopen as the Vance Shelter for Women, a place for those who have been underestimated and discarded to get back on their feet." She pressed the card into Beatrice's palm. "This is the number for the intake coordinator. If you need a bed, get in line. But be warned, Beatrice, the residents do their own chores. No maids allowed." Cassie stepped into her waiting limousine. As the car pulled away, she looked back one last time. Beatrice stood alone in the rain, clutching the card, staring at the gray sky. "To the airport," Cassie told the driver, leaning back into the leather seat. "I have a vacation to take." And that is the story of how a silent, dutiful wife turned the tables on the husband who betrayed her. Preston Sterling thought he was discarding a piece of trash, but he ended up throwing away a diamond. In his arrogance, he forgot the most important rule of life. Be careful who you step on while you're climbing up, because you might have to look them in the eye on your way down. The Sterlings lost their fortune, their freedom, and their legacy, not because Cassie was cruel, but because they couldn't imagine a world where the help was actually the queen. If you enjoyed this story of ultimate karma and revenge, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. What would you have done if you were Cassie? Would you have given Preston a second chance? Or did he get exactly what he deserved? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss another story of twists, drama, and justice. Thanks for watching.